Okay. So now what I wanted to show is just my recommendation for how to take your storyboard and put it into Adobe Animate. I think I have downloaded a storyboard here, have I? No, it's going to be in the desktop. So here's like a example storyboard. I've really taken this and I've pared it down into this kind of formalized, abstracted universe where I'm focusing on colors and movements and shapes. This is something I did as an example last semester, so I'm just using this. This isn't interpreting a particular story from the semester, all to say. Okay, so here's my storyboard just brought into Animate, and I realize I should put this in here. And the first thing to do is to place this in a timeline in time. So what I'm going to do is just kind of cut this up piece by piece. Here's a very simple way to do it. So I'm going to just like scale the storyboard so that the first scene fills the frame when the animation starts. If I crop down to the edge of the frame, I can see how it's going to look. So this is how I'm just going to like lay out the bones of the narrative for myself. So unfortunately, the semester, there's no clear recommendation for how long it should take. We don't have a necessarily like an audio track that the timing of this first scene is going to correspond with. So it's going to be a bit arbitrary. Maybe each scene could be about 5 seconds. We're doing about 15 to 30 seconds for the entirety of the thing. So it's a bit arbitrary unless you have an audio track that if you have music you're going to lay out, to begin with, it would be good to start with that. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to insert a frame here at 5 seconds, I guess. And then at 5 seconds, I'm just going to move my player to the second scene in my storyboard. And that's gonna just like keyframe that because I have auto keyframing on. So it's gonna start there. And at 5 seconds, that feels like a long time. It's gonna flick over to the second scene of my storyboard. Ah, I don't know, whatever, that doesn't fit perfectly, but then I'll go into 10 seconds. I can always move the timing of these around. And then I'm going to go to scene 3. And then, do the same thing for scene 4. I highly, 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 highly recommend doing something of this sort as you begin. Okay, and then I have scene 4 laid out, and then let's just pretend that this is going to end at 20 seconds. Okay, so now I have my entire animation in skeletal form laid out. And you can always move the timing around. And so now, knowing that, I know how much space I have to fill up. I know when it is going to hit the next scene. And it's kind of arbitrary because I have nothing to guide me in terms of the timing. So I'll just do my best there. So that's the start. If you wanted, I can also show you, I don't know whether it's too heavy-handed, but you could also work on it this way. Maybe I won't even do that. It is possible to separate scenes out into totally different timelines. Maybe I'm not even I thought I was gonna introduce that, but I feel like it's too burdensome. It's gonna be better with this exercise, I think, to work on them on one timeline, but you do have the ability to create different scenes. So I could insert a scene and I could import the same, I guess I'll just mention this. I could actually have separate scenes that are kind of that are just very like separate timelines. So I can have scene 1, scene 2, and they can be any length I want. And then once I export the animation, they're just going to play in sequence. So let's see. Scene 1 is, let's say it's 1 second. So if I wanted to do it if I wanted to do it this way, I could just work on my scene 1 and not worry about messing up whatever is going to happen later. And then when I go to export, it's the entire animation, it will play the sequences in order, scene one, then scene two. So that is another option. If you're starting to make a really complicated story with a lot of layers, a lot of like a really long one or something that's going to be really complicated, it can be a good way to begin by setting up your different like scenes or shots into different scenes in Adobe Animate. But I think the first example is probably going to be the most straightforward and the right use case for most people. But creating different scenes is actually it's a tool that I use quite a bit. I find it really helpful, but it can be a little confusing. So go either direction on this. If you want a reminder on how to create separate scenes, I'm happy to help you with that. You can even like reorder the scenes later if you want to. Easy. And I want to show one other thing before we totally break off into our own places. I want to show you how to I think I did this really quick last week, but I kind of want to show you a use case for like how um, you can create a conversation between like photographic imagery and like hand-drawn stuff in Animate. Like I made this stupid jet ski scene just now at the beginning of class where I'm just like researching different images, or I'm incorporating my own images, or I can just kind of like bring things in and cut them up in different ways in order to not have to hand draw everything. So it's very easy to do this kind of thing. But let's say I wanted to add a UFO that I drew to this scene. You can do this with any JPEG that you bring in. I know that I've told you the whole semester you can't really incorporate pixel-based images into this platform. Well, that it's not entirely true, and maybe I should have introduced this earlier on. So I have this like UFO. Say I wanted a UFO to come in and haunt this scene for whatever reason. This is totally unrelated to the assignment, but I bring in this UFO onto its own layer. Whoops. It's very big starting off. Let me zoom out and turn this off. Okay, so if I want to bring in my own drawings, my Google search images, I can take an image like this, and I can actually, or any photographic material, and I can right click on it. It's kind of like by default uneditable, but you can edit it in a limited way. And this is what I think I showed at the very end of class some Irma Fiend animations. And this is what he does. So you can take it, break apart the image, and then you can kind of select a portion of it to like cut away or to like copy and paste. So I'm just gonna like cut away the sections of this image I don't want. Okay. And so now I have a UFO to use. And I can turn this now into a classic tween. And I can just animate it however I want, coming into the frame. You can use it like any symbol that you've created. You can even add things like a drop shadow. You can recolor your own drawings. There's a lot you can actually do uh, with your imported material. You can kind of create these puppets that multi-part puppets. If you draw your own figure or something and you want movable arms and legs, you could cut them out and separate them onto different layers. And here's one other thing that I'll mention too. So now I have an animated UFO coming into the scene. Maybe not connecting to the right tone of the animation, but you can see here that I've done the same thing with this jet ski, where I've cut out the jet ski and then I've just like animated with my brush tool some frame by frame animation to add some secondary action, kicking up the waves. And now I could add like if I wanted to, I could create a new layer and add a tractor beam or something. Add like a green, low transparency, very thick tractor beam, kind of beaming Oh, whoops. I could like be, beaming at him with a tractor beam now. So I think like adding, kind of multiple elements to each action is something that's going to be very evocative, or it's going to really help the thing feel more textured and more dramatic. So just like what can you add through all of your various techniques to add like kind of nuance and poignancy and depth and texture to your scene. Um, there's one more thing that I wanted to show here, which is that we want to kind of apply where possible our animation principles. One of those being easing. If you want to, I actually applied easing here to the jet ski. So my jet ski is like kind of moving slow, then speeding up. Any action, I mean, a UFO might not actually have to deal with inertia in the world, but anything that's going from still to speeding up, it's going to have easing. And if you have a movement through a classic tween, you can actually apply by clicking somewhere in the tween a kind of automatic easing to any motion. Like if I'm having my UFO go from say, where does he start off? Go from here across the screen. I could easily apply easing to this by clicking in so right now it looks like this. It's just going like in a very, robotic, static way across. I can click on the movement, and in my properties panel, I can click on this classic ease area, and I can apply ease in, which will mean easing in means that it will start off slow and dealing with friction and then speed up. And I can change the amount of easing. If I do like, this is a very extreme easing. You don't have to understand these curves, but if you apply it, you'll notice that it's going to start off slow and then really speed up. So to apply an easing like that is a fairly simple thing. And then you can add like stretch and squash to it as you go through. Let's see how effectively it works. Anyway, that's just a thought. So, whoa, I don't know if we even stretch that much. Okay. So anyway, that's just something you can think about. Add that tool to your tool belt. What if we really stretch it? Maybe that's gonna be good. Woo. Okay. Anyway, so just some thoughts. And maybe later I will. No, let me just add insult to injury, insult to misery, and just say a couple more things. Okay. So how to invest mood into your storytelling ideas. Here are some examples. Color palette. Think about the color palette and how that will establish mood. Think about stylization. Think about external references or imagery. Think about composition. Think about how visuals are commenting on or talking back to, well, this is not related to the semester, but to your audio track. So I'll ignore that part. Think about color palette. Intentional color palette to convey mood. Steven Universe. It's the best. Hedgehog in the Fog, classic. Drab, earth tony ambiance. Secret of Kells. Stylization. Think about what interesting kind of visual culture, what the feel of line, shape, edge. This is a great. I haven't seen the whole thing, but like this is a very 80s feeling. Very. I mean, the stylization of the figures and the shapes and everything is like so resonant for me. There's such a clear, focused vision of the world.
I love the contrast of those like blue LED-esque lights on the ceiling there. I think that's so cool.
So beautiful.
And it adds like almost like a neo-noir sort of vibe to it.
Yeah. Oh, very, very much. It's like technology versus it's like cyberpunk versus like Art Deco. It's such a world. It's beautiful. It's like one guy's labor of love, I believe. Secret of Kells, like the kind of like curvilinear kind of stylization of all forms in this film is like so affecting. It's inspired by like Irish medieval manuscript illuminations, like the book, specifically the Book of Kells, which you all remember from your intro to art class or your art history 101. You know, here's a great animation that's like really based on children's drawings. You have like the crayon marker textures, the simplified forms, which are still like, you know, they're still very textured, so it doesn't feel um, generic. Thief and the Cobbler, that was this kind of a cultural appropriative piece by Richard Williams, the animator's toolkit author, interpreting like stories from the Thousand and One Nights, but like really beautiful. Oh, nice idea. I'm sure the reference is there. The way the cobbler is animated is very Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's worth looking up a sequence from him. Some of the best character animation ever. Like a lot of the ideas in this piece that he was working on for like 20 years were stolen for Aladdin. A lot of his animators actually were ended up working on Disney's Aladdin, and so they kind of, for better or for worse, additionally appropriated his cultural appropriations. Yeah, so a lot of it was stolen. I mean, you could probably see resonance with like Jabbar from the movie. Anyway, so other external references, feel free, like copy, trace, use photographic imagery as inspiration. We haven't really explored rotoscoping, but like animating on top of real world image or photographic imagery is like a big part of the culture, which I sometimes I'm able to connect to. But this series Undone on Amazon is really good, and the whole thing is like um, now I'm forgetting the word that I just used. Rotoscoped. Have a Nice Day. This series, which is like is referencing like Cultural Revolution or like social realist posters from China. You know, find some other kind of connection point to visual culture, even your own like weird particular tie into visual culture. We want to kind of stay away from like recognizable properties. Like you don't want to fill up your story with Sonic the Hedgehogs or something, but you know, there could still be cues in. Use imagery from the world, use textures from the world to make things feel more like connective, more at home, more warm. If you want to connect to those kind of warm colors or the kind of memories of like family or of warmth, get those like fabrics, those textures in. Um, so anyway, composition, point of view, camera shot, think about scale, think about what's included in the frame, point of view, low angles, maybe kind of like think about the viewer's attention, about how action is staged. The Breadwinner is by the same company that did Secret of Kells. Uh, Adventure Time, working my way quickly through Adventure Time with my daughter right now. So good. Oh, I'm so glad to get a chance to watch the show. It's so good. So it's BMO. BMO. Yeah, this is a longer. They were doing longer form runs during the pandemic. I don't know if they're still doing it, but like this is a 45-minute animation with BMO as the main character. Anyway, so yeah, I will stop there and let you just work.
Thank you.